Have you ever wondered why the government doesn't print money to solve problems like inequality and poverty? Well, as we go through this video, we'll see why that is not the best idea. Welcome to this video on the neoclassical school of thought. This school of thought emerged after the Industrial Revolution, and they were the successors of the classical school and the marginalist school. They were different from these other two school of thoughts in the way that they stressed upon the importance of both demand and supply in the determination of price. They also said that money had a role in the economy, unlike the other two school of thoughts. So the central question of this video is, are the monetary tools effective in fighting problems like inflation and recessionary periods? Nat Wicksell is a monetarist economist, and the question he tried to answer was, why do prices collectively rise and fall? And he distinguished between these two rates, the natural interest rates and the bank rates. The natural interest rate is an idea similar to the idea Adam Smith introduced in his price theory, where he talked about the natural price and the market price. This is kind of a similar idea. So the natural interest rate was determined by the savings of individuals. So the supply of savings and then the demand for savings. And this demand for savings arose from the attractiveness of investment opportunities in the economy. The bank rate was determined by the banks. These banks, we know, have massive funds at their disposal and they're free to determine these rates. So, how do these rates then affect or how do they cause business cycle in the economy? So, for example, if the bank rate is less than the natural interest rate, then people have the incentive. People don't have the incentive to save. Instead, they go out in the market and invest their money, and this investment causes the expenditure on capital goods as well as the consumption goods to rise because as investment takes place, the demand for land, labor increases, the incomes increase. But there's a problem, and if we go back to Alfred Marshall, who is also a neoclassical economist, he said that in the short run, demand cannot increase in response to the increase in demand. Supply cannot increase in response to the increased demand. So supply doesn't increase in the short run. And this is the problem here. So the demand has increased, but the supply cannot increase. What happens is the prices increase. That is inflation in the economy. So, how can we solve this problem and how can we establish stability in the economy? He said by keeping the natural interest rate equal to the bank rate. Irving Fisher, he's another neoclassical economist, and um, he reflected upon these two different rates, and this is a different idea. He talked about the impatient rate and the investment opportunity rate. The impatient rate, he said, was determined by the preference of individuals in the market for present day consumption versus future consumption. So if individuals say prefer consuming in the future, then the impatient rate is low. Um, but this also means that the marginal value for future consumption is low because you're already um, transferring a lot of resources into the future. The investment opportunity rate is a real is determined by real factors, unlike the impatient rate, uh, which depends on individual preferences. So investment opportunity rate depends upon the resources available in the economy and how are they allocated. So are you allocating them for present day consumption, or are you transferring them into the future? Are you using them to produce capital goods in order to then expand future consumption. And the diminishing returns is again a relevant concept here. So if you are stressing upon future consumption, then the then the rate of return on your investment in future falls because you are transferring too many goods in too many resources into the future, and the returns are low. So you can see that these two rates move in opposite direction. So if you have, let's say, preference for future consumption, then your impatient rate is high because the marginal utility for present day consumption is high. And on the other hand, the investment opportunity rate is low because the rate of return on future consumption is low. Um, and where these two meet, or where they are equal, is the point where interest rates in the market are developed. Um, so the equality between the equality of impatient rate and opportunity investment opportunity rate is basically the interest rate in the market, and this is the real interest rate. He also reflected upon the nominal interest rates, and these nominal interest rates are more important since they not only compensate you for time value of money, but also they compensate you for the fall in the purchasing power of your principal due to inflation. So nominal interest rate, Fisher said, was the sum of inflation rate and the real interest rate. And this is known as the Fisher effect today. So what was the role of money in the economy then? There's a simple rule that he introduced, that if money supply in the economy increases, then the prices are going to increase. And this is especially true in in the short run. So if you increase the money supply, then um, then the equilibrium expenditure point is we move away from the equilibrium, and we are moving towards excess expenditure. So so to bring the demand down, then the prices in the economy rise. So there's a direct relationship between money supply and price. The societal situation, but during the time this school of thought emerged, the economies had moved from agrarian economies towards industrial economies. So it was getting more complex, and the business cycles were occurring again and again. And so the economists didn't have an answer to and so the old school of thought didn't have an answer for these problems. So you had to really take into consideration the role of money to answer problems like inflation and recession. And of course, there was an increase in the banking. There was a shift towards banking systems and credit systems. So the role of money was increasing in the economy. Contemporary policies. Inflation interest rates are a important and like a key tool used um, by the central banks. Countries have separate central banks, who look after the monetary policies. And here you can see a statement from the European Central Bank chief, where she's talking about the possible loss of progress. Uh, Against inflation if the interest rates are cut. This is in context of the rise in inflation post-COVID. So when the expenditure and demand was recovering back, but due to supply chain issues, the supply wasn't really catching up. So inflation was high in that period. So there was this debate whether the interest rates should be increased or not. And so this is the context behind this statement. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. If you have any questions, well, I'll be there in the tutorial. Feel free to ask. Thank you for watching this video.